There we go. And good morning, boys and girls. Welcome to another Weegamers video. It's myself, Wee Andy, and I am joined this afternoon. I was going to be this evening, but it's this afternoon by Karl from Crooked Dice. Hello, Karl.
Morning. How are you?
It's not morning anymore.
Afternoon.
Okay, so this is obviously a different beast for us, Karl. This is very much about lurkers from the deep. But let's assume for a moment, as we tend to do in these things, that this is for the new eyes who are falling upon Crooked Dice. So for those people who are not in the know, what is Crooked Dice? What's the Crooked Dice story, Karl?
Crooked Dice started 10 years ago, so we've now got nearly 900 miniatures and a pretty solid range of resin terrain and vehicles, and we also produce the 7TV set of rules, which is a cinematic, fun skirmish set where essentially you can recreate any movie or TV episode you like on the tabletop.
Sorry,
I'm very quiet, sir.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things we've hit a little one of those lovely warning lights has come up from YouTube for some reason. I'm not sure if we're literally beaming out the way we should be. Sorry about this. We just
have a look. My window wasn't doing anything there, so we can check. There's that goal.
Best laid plans of mice and men, I'm afraid. I think we're back.
There's something up there, but we're not moving.
Yeah,
are we? Oh, we are.
Yeah, YouTube came up with a little warning. That's the one nice thing about the live streaming from they've updated is that they do kind of go, hey, streamer, something's gone wrong. It's not your fault. It's the universe. So just pause for a moment. So we've paused.
I can see it on my other screen here. We're a bit jumpy. I'll give it that. But
yeah. I think, Karl, we're probably still facing that nugget with so many more people at home, homeschooling and all the rest of it. The old internet at 4G is still struggling to deliver what it's supposed to do.
It was right until lockdown, and now it's being hammered.
Now it's being battered. But again, I mean, this is for the people out there this morning. They can watch this later on again. And I mean, we can always revisit this anyway. So, okay. On the go 10 years, it's actually hard to believe there's that many miniatures. That's a phenomenal amount of miniatures for essentially one guy.
We have, with the exception of about the first 6 months, released something every month.
Yeah.
So there's been at least one pack of something or other. So it doesn't take that long to kind of build it up. But yeah, I'm now surrounded by a room of IKEA pots filled with lovely little lead men. So there's plenty of slowing down on that.
You're living the dream, but Karl, how as a one-man show essentially, how do you manage not only to maintain the brand but to keep expanding it? How does that work for you?
I don't know. My background was in kind of publishing and production, so that's quite natural for me to kind of like keep it rolling on. And the other part of my job used to be kind of like comms and marketing, so it was sort of it was always make sure that you tell people what you've got and then tell them again. So it's we've always, I don't know, it's kind of been the norm for years that we've just kept that up. It was two of us to start off with. It was a partnership when it first started up, and then a few years ago we parted ways. But I get a lot of help from a lot of very talented people. So the sculptors, and I kind of run and commission stuff in there and give out design briefs, but it's lots of other people that help kind of maintain it. So it's just planning it, really. We've worked with Edgehill University for the last, God, my time is awful, 4 years, I think, and their creative writing department, and we've done two sort of projects with them. We did 7TV Pulp 2 years ago, and we're just in the last leg of 70 Fantasy, which will be out in June as well. So that's the second box set that we've produced with them. So that's been nice working with teams. And in fact, Lurkers from the Deep started off as a summer placement project from Pulp. And kind of said they wanted a little idea, and we started to develop an idea, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then changed shape and shape again and again, as is probably completely appropriate for Cthulhu and its Cyclopean angles. So
it's a work of madness. But funny you mentioned,
yeah, a little bit. It is a bit like that.
You mentioned all the games, and that's useful, I suppose, as well for the people who are new to Crooked Dice. But I mean, with the range of titles that Crooked Dice has, is the fan base a split thing where you've got people in different camps? You know, the ones who like their spy-fi, the ones who like their horror, blah blah blah, or is it, you know, a nice homogenous group?
I think overall it's a pretty good community. It's certainly one of the friendliest that I've kind of come across in there. And the games that we've done have largely been I was kind of growing up anyway. So we've got the Spy-Fi stuff, which was the original kind of intention, because that was based on an RPG that I ran for some mates back in the 90s. So we kind of reworked that for the Spy-Fi engine. But then we've got Apocalypse with the Mad Max bit, Pulp with cliffhanger serials that I kind of grew up watching on BBC Two, The King of the Rocket Men and Flash Gordon and that kind of thing. And now we've got a fantasy coming up, which was probably, like most people, a kind of entry into the hobby, or certainly into kind of geekdom.
Yeah.
Anyway, so but the core engine for the 17 rules is the same across all of those rule sets. So you can plug in, and even when we were doing 7TV, the initial Spy-Fi one, there were people saying, "Oh, I'm playing this with fantasy figures or whatever." It's the system itself is highly adaptable. And the profiles that it got are kind of deal in archetypes rather than kind of some characters a lot of the time. So your action hero could be James Bond, but I guess it could be Robin Hood or King Arthur or whatever you wanted. But as we've developed the extra sets, we've kind of just whittled down a little bit more and fleshed those out and given each one of those archetypes a little bit more kind of life. So yeah, there's the Valiant Royal now in 70 Fantasy. In there. But the community itself is great, and come up with thousands of kind of mad ideas for it. The whole idea behind kind of 70 is that it's fun. It's a good couple of hours where you can reminisce and wallow in the nostalgia and kind of replay those scenes with those kind of characters that you liked from your childhood shows or films, really. So that brings quite a mellow crowd with it, it seems, who are not too much worried about the hard and fast kind of rules of it, but more want to play the kind of narrative aspects of a skirmish game. And that's certainly where I've kind of come from with it as well in the kind of design of it. I played those kind of games. I always say I wasn't a particularly good role player and I wasn't a particularly good war gamer. I fused those things together, and that's the sort of game that I kind of quite liked playing. Halfway decent at both.
It is one of the nice aspects of Crooked Dice. You're quite right. The 7TV, it's a very forgiving system. So yeah, I do remember when I first had the Spy-Fi as well, that science fiction, little bit of horror, everything could be done as long as you understood the mechanic. You could kind of bend to your will, and now you're obviously bending the will to meet that sort of love as well.
Yeah, you try and kind of build into it that it's cinematic, either in the kind of the way that we name things and deal with it, like we've got stars and co-stars and extras and their abilities are special effects, that kind of stuff. Mechanics are kind of built in to try and support that as well, but also want a little bit of flexibility just to be able to recreate that kind of mad stuff that you see on screen. It's one of those kind of narrative skirmish games where people rarely die. They just get taken off screen or your program gets axed. So it's a couple of people recently were describing it as a kind of a bloodless war game. And it is that kind of thing, really. It's people don't get killed; they get blown up and fall onto a load of boxes. It's that kind of sentiment to it.
Yeah, it's good, wholesome, classic television. It's the A-Team embodied. You know, helicopters can crash into hillsides, but everyone just dusts themselves off, a bit dazed, and walks away.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's enough
And it's,
bloodshed. There's enough bloodshed. Carl, this obviously isn't your first rodeo, so why is Kickstarter the right thing to do?
funding something like that is always a challenge. Um, Lots and lots of other games companies said to me, "You should try Kickstarter." It kind of really works, and in the end, I kind of gave it a go. First off, it's a massive shop window. It's the equivalent of lots of people walking down Oxford Street rather than in the little village where I live. You get there's a whole new community on there, which I didn't really realise to start off with on Kickstarter. So it's reaching a load more people than if we just kind of did a home baked. But for me, from a business point of view, Kickstarter was the was designed to be able to generate capital to be able to fund production, which is the most expensive kind of part of the process. So practically, it's a great platform to be able to do that. With this one, we've got a new kind of supplement expansion, 16 miniatures, 12 MDF buildings in there. It would be difficult just to release that kind of in a month, just with the size of the company that we are in there. But being able to have an extended kind of delivery period and a lot more kind of customers being able to see you means that it's achievable, which is wonderful.
Yeah. Well, you've said about the range, so I suppose the sensible thing for us to do at this point is actually take a little early peek. And if I slide this magic button, doodle doo doo, doodle doo doo, there we go. We should be looking, and the boys and girls at home, connection issues aside, should be looking at a little preview of the Kickstarter page, because
Nice.
appearing there for them shortly should be the Lurkers from the Deep logo and artwork. Fantastic artwork again on this one, Carl, I've got to say.
That's two of our miniatures. That wasn't really very difficult to do. The little guy standing in the front there is our investigative academic in there. No, he's an occult investigator. I'll tell you wrong. And that's our Great Cthulhu miniature that we
Get
do.
out
So
of
that's just a
town.
bit of artistic Photoshop work and a bit of a filter going on to make Cthulhu look all wobbly and cyclopean. So that was quite nice doing that in there, and it came together quite easily. But yeah, even better was showing off the miniatures. So
That's really. I hate to tell you, I swore that was artwork because it's not abundantly clear that those are your miniatures. You should put a little caption at the bottom. These are miniatures from the game.
yeah. Well, you can get him as an add-on in the campaign, and I was going to put the occult investigator in there maybe later on as a, depending on how we go, as maybe as a kind of a freebie that we could chuck in. But it's just quite a good dramatic sort of Lovecraft image there, I think, and there's the scale of everything in Cthulhu that I always quite like.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I wish I could do Cthulhu quite that big. That's not actually that Cthulhu model in the background isn't to scale. I hasten to add, it's not like the what was it? Death Becomes that
Oh
that campaign with like the 2 foot tall Cthulhu.
yeah, yeah.
That was amazing.
You could
But it's
do
not
one.
that big.
You could do one. Okay, so obviously we're on the draft project. I don't know the miniature. Can it's only sort of the people you've invited to have a little gander, or is this up to the public eyes already?
No, not at the moment. I've everything is in there. I'm doing the last, as whatever with these things. We're doing the last kind of bits of artwork and stuff, and getting it together to drop it in. And the thing has gone off to be approved by Kickstarter. It normally takes them a couple of days to do that, and then I can share that link. So, the one that notifies you when it goes live. So at the moment, no, this is just a little special preview for you.
So it's a sneaky little look. Me and the people who have joined us this morning. Hello, people. By the way, we'll chat to you in due course. So I mean, this is really where you take over, Karl, because you kind of know what we're looking at here. I'm kind of guessing by it. So whatever
Well,
you
the first
feel
thing
like
is
sharing.
Well, the first thing is kind of explain what you're going to get. What we've done here is kind of war movies meet cosmic horror is the kind of basic principle in here. So it's if any of you are it's inspired by the kind of raid on Innsmouth, which is hinted at the beginning of Shadow over Innsmouth, in there when the FBI and the army come in to kind of deal with whatever's been discovered and coming out of the ocean in there. So we tried to turn that into a little mini skirmish campaign over 5 different chapters, which is what we call them in our game for 70V pulp. In there, so you can work through that campaign with a different set of kind of forces in each one as they kind of uncover the mystery and try and stop the rise of old Squiddy there in the end. So it's a good. The way we kind of describe it is, imagine if there had been an old black and white kind of cliffhanger craft theme back in, rather than Flash Gordon or King of the Rocket Men. We got lurkers in the deep, and with it, as ever with all of our stuff in here, we wove that into the kind of a faux studio history background in a kind of a cinema, a movie company in there that never existed. So we've even woven it into the back there that the guy couldn't get the rights to do Shadow over Innsmouth, so he did his own version of Lurkers from the Deep. So that's worked in, and we've got production sketches and various bits and pieces kind of woven into it. So anyone familiar with 70V knows that there's this meta kind of quality thing that goes through where we suggest all of these different TV shows and production companies that are in the background that made these shows, and we've had several people saying, "Well, I've looked on YouTube and I can't find these things anywhere. Can you send me links?" Well, they don't exist, but we kind of weave a little world in the background in there where it does, and we've sort of even extended that through into the packaging of this new feature pack product. So you're getting it in a little retro. The light's reflecting off that a bit weirdly. You're getting that in a video case in there. So all of the contents for the game for this are in there as well. So it's just feeding that kind of that can seep through. But yeah, that's a little booklet in there, and that's got everything you need for the Battle of Marshport to go through that. So the stuff that we're doing is allowing people to try and they can either buy in on the miniatures. If they're a 70V fan, they can buy in on the feature pack as well. But with this, to allow you to play some of those battles, there's also about a dozen MDF buildings that we've designed with Sarissa precision. So there's loads of different bits and pieces in there, depending on the kind of a massive terrain head. I've got far too much terrain, and we wanted to try and be able to build that in so you can kind of play through some of the games.
I'm totally with you on that. In the game of terrain, which I think there should be a game that is about setting up a table, because I would win that game. Sometimes, not always. You keep going onto the internet and looking at people's tables. You think, oh, I need to work so much harder, and I do. I've got to say, just looking at what the VHS cassette includes, I have to say I'm particularly taken by the ritual tracker card.
Yes. So if you're familiar with 7TV, in there are 5 episodes and bits and pieces in there, but the difference between, I guess, a feature pack and what we've done before, this is named characters. There's still some generic extras in there, but you're following more of a story.
Yeah.
In there, the stuff that we've done in the past is largely the great thing about 7TV is that you can build your own pieces. But this is geared a little bit more at the people that are maybe time poor and just want to set up and play on the table. So we've got named characters in there. We've also got bespoke gadgets and MacGuffins and some other bits and pieces in there as well, because the episode allow us to play about with the mechanics a little bit and have bespoke things that you only use in one particular adventure. And that's what the ritual tracker card is. That's in the very finale of the game, where certain mechanics build up as people shout out Cthulhu for Tang in the background. Kind of build up towards Cthulhu rising out of the water at the end. But that's some work Dave Needham has done. He did the Lurkers logo in this and a lot of the other bits and pieces. I've just worked with him for the last 18 months on fantasy, and he's done some beautiful work for that. So I drafted him in to do this, and we were looking for an idea for the ritual tracker the other day, and the Ouija board just was a stroke of genius kind of idea that he came up with. So we'll do that, and you can kind of track that through. And there's new bespoke tokens for this. There's a sample of a couple of them in there as well. You've got the neurotic and the insane statuses, which are bespoke for this, and they just seem quite fitting for a kind of a Lovecraft setting as well. So we can do all of that within a feature pack, and each one will be different and have different kind of aspects of that in it, because we've got a few of these lined up.
It's a lovely touch what you're saying there though about that finale, because I mean, in all the sort of Cthulhu stories and the Cthulhu, even the board games and the role playing game, you've got that initial phase of the sort of the traditional investigation. And granted, this closes in, the investigation kind of is over. This is that fight, but then you've always got that last minute race against the clock to actually stop the evil.
Yeah, we've got it's a skirmish game in there. Some of the initial drafts that I did with I'll have to mention now, Connor and Isabel, who from Edge Hill University, who initially worked on this as a kind of a sum up project, really, probably about 2 years ago now, I think. And their background was in playing Call of Cthulhu in there, and they were trying to build the kind of the investigation stuff into it in a couple of the earlier drafts in there. But we kind of kept going back, and in the end, we kind of hit on that. No. It's what if there was a war movie versus kind of Lovecraft stuff? It was that mashup of kind of things in there, and we drew it back more to the kind of the skirmish bit. So if you're familiar with 7TV and any of the basic mechanics, they're all there. But we've tried as much as possible to get the tone and the narrative to kind of fit to that particular setting. There's a bit of it already. It's a box set has got a kind of a weird menace section, which has got various kind of cosmic horrors. But this, we've kind of really gone for it and focused in on that. So yeah, it's been really nice to do those statuses and those extra little bits and pieces of kind of foul ceremonies and that kind of stuff. And there's Shoggoth and Dagon cultists and all sorts mixed in here as well.
It's a lovely thing from the point of view. What I like about it too, for somebody new coming to Crooked Dice, this is a great sort of jump on point because it is self-contained. If you buy into this, you can play the Assault and Innsmouth, and it's its own little beast. But if you're already familiar with 7TV, it all makes sense. There's a few new things for you that kind of make you raise the eyebrows and goes, oh, this plays a little bit differently. This is a new quirky thing. And the one thing that I think we struggle with getting the head round for sort of putting together a cast for 7TV is what you said at the start. They're used to a model being a specific character, whereas in this you've kind of got an archetype, and you can put whatever model you want on the table as long as you remember that's the model you're saying is this archetype. Whereas this one kind of labels them all for you in a more traditional sense. That model is this card.
Yeah, it is. I think a lot of the kind of our long-time fans in there sometimes struggle to kind of introduce. They get it and they love it in there, but they sometimes find it difficult to get other people to buy it. It's the same like any game. I mean, there's thousands out there, and there's a lot of competition. But this might be a slightly easy, as you say, a more traditional kind of approach to it in there. So hopefully it'll appeal to new people as well as the existing fans, really.
Well,
because it's
that's the nice thing, as I say as well. It's almost like with 7TV in the past, you buy your starter box and you buy 2 starting casts, which I think if you're new to it, that's kind of already a big question. Well, what do I buy? You buy what you like. Yeah, but what do I buy? Every other game tells me what to buy. You're just telling me to buy what I like. What's this? Enjoy myself? Whereas Lurkers really does go, here you are, here's a story, here's a game, here's an adventure, here's the miniatures you're going to need, and here's some terrain if you want it as well. And that I think almost is the starter set that maybe in some respects has been missing a little bit from the Crooked Dice universe, where Susan can walk in, go, oh, I know nothing about it, that's what I need, great, I'm away, thanks very much.
Yeah, I mean it's not the feature pack in there is just their way of kind of, it's just a scenario pack that you would buy. It's probably coming back to my RPG rather than my kind of wargaming roots in there, is that you'd buy that and it's a self-contained adventure. That's all it is in there. But we've again just put our kind of little crooked bells and whistles on it in there, just to kind of theme it in there. But this is the first one, so we'll see how this one goes. But we've got half a dozen different ones. There's at least 2 or 3 in production. As a kind of a test for the product itself, I reworked one of our first edition supplements, which is called Vlad's Army, which is Home Guard versus vampires, World War II kind of setting, and that works quite nicely. So that's 3 episodes, and it's got bespoke kind of cliffhanger cards for that, and it's got some nice mechanics where if you collect certain gadgets in the old Cold It style, you can add those together and they turn into a kind of a new MacGuffin for you. So there's loads of flexibility to play about with the rules within each set, depending on what you want to do, just with the kind of the base mechanics. So a couple more written or kind of in development for fantasy as well. So hopefully it will be a kind of a new series of stuff, and it'll allow us to get some of the older stuff out to people as well. We used to do program guides in the past. They might still carry on, but they need a lot more work because there's a lot more profiles and a lot more testing. I think this might be a better product to be able to get that sort of stuff out. I think I'm hoping anyway.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, so core game is obviously the feature pack. It's going to include some miniatures. Well, actually, no. I'm jumping the gun here. You tell us, what way does the Kickstarter work for people buying in? Because on screen we're about to start hitting stretch goals now. So before we jump into stretch goals, what are they buying into? Or what levels can they buy into?
Should we have a look at the pledges?
Yeah,
There?
I can do
Down
that.
a little bit. As ever, with all of our Kickstarters, if we scroll across those the stretch goals a little bit in there, and we've got the pledges in it. Try to make it as flexible as possible, depending on what people want. It's the way we've always done it with the Kickstarters in the past in here. So you've got the core pledges, and then you can. So to start off with, there's the good old Lurker supporter pledge in there. If you want to buy those individual packs, do it that way and just do a Lurker pledge in there. Or if you just want to say, I've got the money at the moment, but I love you very much, and want to put in a quid or something, that's the standard kind of one in there. And then I've got lots of miniatures already. VHS kind of feature pack set in there, so that will give you the rules in there. And I think you previewed this before. You get loads of goodies in there. You'll get a couple of different sets of coloured MDF tokens and stuff, and you get the little guide. There's a little 80-page A6 book in there, which gives you everything that you need to play, some production drawings in there from it.
Lovely.
And that gives you everything that you need to kind of play the game. And it's also got some lovely stuff from the beautiful Mr. Dr. Peter. Right in there, he's written the background of the production of this kind of pretend thing with movie posters and
love the lighthouse.
Some production drawings of some weird science devices. So you get your little book in there with all of that, all of your cards. We've introduced something in that as well. There's a little preview there of injury cards. Because it's 5 games that you're playing, there are mechanics now in there, depending on your kind of level of victory for the heroes and villains. You get different outcomes and bonuses for the next chapter that you play. And you can also carry across kind of things like injuries. So if you get a socked in the eye or a busted arm or a busted leg, it just fits and adds a little bit more flavour to that kind of the sort of campaign approach that we've taken with this. So that's where you get the feature pledge. Then we start to get into some exciting miniatures. So we've got the hero pledge now.
Yep.
Again, all of these are getting you the stuff at a discount. You're getting the feature pack, and if you say, okay, well, I've got lots of fish folk and Innsmouth denizens in there, I just want the heroes in there. Or if you just like the look of these, then what we've got in some good old G-men, some government agents, and then some kind of stars and co-stars that will some esoteric agents, and we've got another occult investigator.
Sorry, I was just going to pause you. I'm just going to take a moment to apologise to anyone that's watching. We do seem to be hitting intermittent problems with the signal. So if you are experiencing jumps and whatnot or a loss of audio, I can only apologise. It seems to flare up every so often, so I'm not sure how much of this is getting out until we're done essentially and review this. I'm not sure just how we're going to come across to people, so apologies for that. So yeah, Hero
That's right. We
Pledge.
can go back if we need.
Well, I'll never get tired talking about crooked dice, so we can do that. We can do this every day. So yeah, sorry, the villain pledge then.
Yeah, so the villain pledge, pretty much the same. Exactly, it's the same the price in there. But if you would like the villains in there instead, then we've got that. So we've got there's 8 new fish folk. We've got a line of miniatures. I think we've got 12, 12 or so at the moment of the fish folk, and we've got some more here. There's a sailors pack, and later on, as things get unlocked, there'll be another set of kind of longshoremen or dock workers as well that we've got as well, waiting for to be dropped in there. So we'll have lots of shiny to go with that as well. So again, flexibility depending on what type of miniatures that you want with the feature pack. But if you want, you can buy the feature pack on its own, or you can buy these packs of miniatures on their own, depending on what you want. Obviously, the bigger the pledge that you put in, the more discount and extra stuff that you're getting as well. And at this level, you'll get all of the kind of free stretch goal stuff that goes out, which is kind of pretty standard. So they're the two kind of starter ones in there. And then if you go, oh no, I like all of them, I want the lot. The director pledge in their bundles all of those together at a bigger discount again. So you've got 16 figures in there and the box.
It's funny that you said, because I'm one of those weird miniature collectors, and that traditionally I would have a habit of literally collecting the army that I like, the miniatures that appeal to me. Whereas crooked dice naturally to the fence, obviously. So I'd given in and got myself some of the fish folk cultists. Now, when I
Yes.
say they didn't appeal to me, that is not a criticism of the miniatures, of the sculpt, of the design, or anything like that. It's just they wouldn't normally be the faction I would play, so I wouldn't normally buy them. But I got some, and I've got to say they were an absolute pleasure to paint. They were just fun to paint.
Ian Colwell, who I've worked with now for quite a few years, sculpted all of those, and that new set of fish folk styles in there I love, with the kind of the old lady and the porter guy, the bellhop. I just love those. They just got a good kind of sinister sort of look to them as well. So yeah, they're really nice. But again, yeah, you can. It's whatever you like. Each sort of kind of in this is a player versus player in there, and you'll pick various ones of these as kind of as you go through, and then as you said, pick things from the other collection or extra packs of stuff if you want for particular scenarios. So that's a director pledge. That's a kind of a bigger level, and then we move on to the producer pledge. And this is showing off here. This is what we've worked with. Sarissa and Steve and Gary have been absolutely superb in here. And I think they're all 12 buildings there. And what we're going to do with this producer pledge allows you to just get these now. And there's also there's another pledge in here which we're not showing at the moment, which is actually just the buildings on their own. If you just want the terrain, you'll just be able to build that, and that's at, I'm going to say it's about 50-60 quid off what the final retail price would be for those buildings. But if you really want to go all in,
the bad news is they've seen it because it was still on the screen.
What's that, my dear?
They've seen the pledge that isn't there because it was still on the screen. The MDF only one's still there. But I know where you're coming from. No, but that's a gorgeous bundle. But now to reinforce to everyone at home that producer pledge at 250 quid, that isn't the essential purchase. That's kind of like the Queen level. I want it all, and I want it now.
Yes.
Yeah. You're not missing out by not getting that one.
and all of those buildings have been themed to the individual scenarios as well. So you'll be able to use those in the game as you kind of go through. I mean, I wish, in fact, I did when I designed the maps for this. I based them all on all of the Sarissa buildings, but quickly realised that it was impossible. It wasn't cost effective for me to do every table for every single pledge in there. So we've taken a kind of a little snapshot of some of the most iconic buildings or objective kind of buildings in there and put those in as well. And there's both kind of standard and derelict ruined versions of some of those as well, depending on what you want. So you'll be able to build up a table with that. But each one of those features within the 5 episodes of the pack as well as little kind of objective places. The lighthouse is a thing of beauty. I love that a lot.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So stretch goals. Do you want to talk? I mean, I'm hovering with the cursor over the stretch goals. Do you want to talk about stretch goals, or do you want to leave that?
Yeah. No, we can do it. I'm just dropping some of those in at the moment, so you're not seeing everything at the moment, but it's a mix of. There'll be some free stuff at kind of key milestones as well, which you can which are there at the moment. I've not said when yet, but that will get updated later on. So you'll be getting some new sculpts, some nice little objective token stuff. Again, they will appear in the game in there. And with this one, because we've got that big range of buildings, what you'll be able to do is unlock those as we go through the campaign, as well as unlocking new miniature add-on packs as well. So I mentioned earlier, there's the Fishfolk dock workers in there. There's a set of kind of 30s cops in there. There's a lovely set of US Rangers later on, which are a little bit late in the game, which are rather sexy. So there'll be unlock things for kind of add-on as you go through, and when you unlock those, all of those will be at a discount. So there's approximately, it's not exact, but approximately 20% off what the retail price will be for the kits or the miniatures, roughly. So you get all of those at a discount as we go along, and you can add those onto your pledge. If you go into some of those bigger ones that we showed earlier, which is just the MDF or the big producer pledge, you're going to get those buildings regardless of whether they're unlocked, because they've got a healthy kind of discount on them. But if you just want individual bits that you want to go through, I really want that lighthouse.
Yeah.
You'll be able to get a discount as we go through. Always try to be as fair as possible to people.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And give them some flexibility. So,
now just
so yeah, we'll.
Sorry. Just going to say, just for the sake of people again who only catching on to Crooked Dice now, obviously end of that trail there, 30k add-on derelict refinery. For Crooked Dice, is that, in your opinion, is that a realistic target that you feel could be reached, or is that you kind of going?
I missed that.
Sorry, I was saying for anyone who sort of has only cottoned on to the whole Crooked Dice universe now and find out about you,
yeah.
The likes of the 30k final target there with the refinery, is that a realistic one for you, or is that literally that's like the candy up there in the top branches of the tree? Might get there, but you know.
I've done 7 of them in there, and I wish I could be able to predict the kind of like the success and the run of it. Really difficult to know. So you kind of build these things in there, and you hope that it might reach those heights. If it doesn't, there's ways and means that we can kind of get to these people later, but we just won't be able to discount them in the same way as we could if we got funded to that level to start off with, really. Yeah. So there's been quite a good response and kind of feedback to this particular one. I think it's ticking a few boxes for a lot of the people, and it's probably the most rounded campaign that I've given, in the fact that you've got a game and you've got miniatures and you've got terrain in there. So there may be something for everyone in there, depending on what they're, whether they just want the miniatures or the terrain or the box or whatever. So you're hopeful, and we'll keep our fingers crossed for it. But if you go in and you want to reach those heights, the best thing I can say to people is, well, just kind of promote it round to your friends as much as possible, and encourage them and annoy people as much as possible as the campaign runs on.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of word of mouth stuff that really helps. So if there's something that you like and you think, oh, I'd really like to unlock it, you can either pledge, put those things in, or encourage more people to join in. That's the way these things work.
Put your pledge in now, because at the end of the day, you're not one of these. I don't mean you're not one of these big companies, but it's not like Crooked Dice can run around sticking adverts in every page and throwing adverts onto Facebook and Instagram every other week. You have to be slightly more selective. So if you see it and you like it, make your pledge, folks. Don't wait to the 11th hour. I suppose the other nice thing about your stretch goals is your stretch goals tend to be nice things to have on top of, rather than some games come out and the stretch goals are like, they're like another part of the actual game. You know, if you don't have that stretch goal, you're going to play less of a game, whereas your stuff is, hey, if you want to run around this house, you can add this. If you want these guys to run around the table, you can have them. But if you don't, you're not going to suffer for your game.
No. The only thing which steps outside that in there is that this is an expansion for 7TV Pulp.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's an option in there to get the box set in there. Though, honestly, if you downloaded the free Spy-Fi rules that we've got on our website in there, you could still give this a pretty good go.
Yeah.
In there, but it's kind of assuming that people have got that. But that's why we've built the add-ons and the stuff the way that we have as well, so that if you just want to buy individual bits of it, you can. You know, if you want to play with those miniatures in another game you've got, feel free.
Do it.
It's all there for you if you want it.
The more fun you can have, the better. I've just called up there the images for some of the MDF kit buildings, and yeah, I mean, you know, just
they are really, really nice. I just wanted that kind of decrepit New England town, which is just so evocative of that Innsmouth kind of story in there, and I think we've got that. We've got some really nice pieces. We've got the tabernacle, the kind of the House of Dagon in there, and there's an old dockside refinery in there, and the old kind of clapperboard buildings. The boathouse I particularly like. So there's a wrecked version of that, and a kind of a boat builder's hut as well. So there's just some nice little kind of objective buildings in there that hopefully will appeal to people.
But even for people who are playing any number of games, you know, if you're into like your zombie themed games, even World War II at a push, you could get away with a lot of these on a lot of different tables.
Yeah, even kind of old west bits and pieces, they'd probably work. You know, some of the more town buildings in there, push maybe. My architecture will not be as good as Gary or Steve, so they may push back on that. But I think there's definitely got multiple use. We try to get something that's going to have appeal just beyond, you know, this setting really.
At the end of the day, you and I are both old enough to remember playing war games with stacks of books and a couple of sprayed up Coke cans acting as the terrain. So, you know.
Many old hardback annuals making hills with which a piece of felt could be put over. I think that's perfectly fine.
Oh, you had a piece of felt. You had a pice of felt. You were just spoiled, you.
One of my first games, there was those on it, which is kind of all in that great book that they produced, that Sarissa produced recently. But no, they're not pre-painted. They're the traditional kind of kits in there. But get that book as well, because that will teach you how to get those kind of effects.
Lovely, lovely. Well, I think we're sort of scrolling down here now. If the boys and girls at home can see it, we're getting to see some more of the miniatures. There's like our G-men and some of the hero characters, which the shrewd amongst you might see certain characteristics that are shared in the wider world with a few other characters. And then down the villains there with some of the fish folk as well. And they are a nice touch of character. And then, of course, there's the visual on our director's pledge. that has a pile of everything, and then the producer's pledge with everything. Yeah, it's probably just as you are giving a slightly longer run for this one, because I think all Crooked Dice Kickstarters have that button where people go, "Oh, I want everything." Um, this one really does deliver on that. And then of course there's their paid add-ons where you can just buy the different bits that you want. And there he is. There's Cthulhu.
Greg Cthulhu. WSS just did a little review of him this month. Guy sent me the mag the other day, so I've got that. So that's a but he's the fellow that's on the front of the pack as well. You've got him. You've got the different fish folk that we've got. There's some more, couple of more bits to add into there as well. So we've picked out the other kind of cosmic horror stuff that we've got in the range already and made that available to kind of add on if people want particular things. So there's a waterline kind of Cthulhu in there as well. We've got the kind of little mini Shoggoth as part of the campaign. If we unlock it, there's a couple of bigger Shoggoth that we've got, which are on kind of bigger 40mm bases. And then there's a couple of little terrain packs that we've got as well, just kind of some lampposts and some bins and bits and pieces, and then a little kind of Cthulhu cult terrain pack, which has got some nice an altar and some weird little statues and bits and pieces. So there's a little bit of there's something for everyone in there. If you just want to go, oh no, I don't want those, but I quite like the terrain pack. I like that. You can go in for that as well.
Lovely. I love your lampposts and the little waste cans and all as well.
I've had those around for ages and ages and ages, just waiting for this. Probably, weirdly, it's one of the first things we probably did for this. I think they've been waiting around for about 18 months to be released. But yeah, just a little kind of another little bit of set dressing, and you could use those if you wanted to as objective markers or something.
There we go. We've reached the bottom of the page. There's. Do you know what, Karl? And you know me long enough and well enough now to know that I don't just say things to make anyone feel good or butter them up. But there's absolutely nothing on that pledge that I don't look at and go, I would buy that. That it's just everything hits the nail on the head. Everything looks like it makes sense. Everything looks like it adds to it. But not adds to it in a way of, as I said earlier, it's not like you've got to go out tomorrow and find 250 quid. Obviously, Karl would love you to go out tomorrow and find 250 quid. Everyone pledged 250. But no, this is about you finding the level you want, the bits you need, the bits you like, or kind of just going, you know what? It's been locked down. It's been a horrible year. I deserve a treat. I'm having everything twice.
When all the stuff we do, I don't like to feel like you're twisting anybody's arm to do it. So you try and make it flexible so people can go into the level that they like and can afford. So hopefully we're doing it with that. And as I say, I'm not a big fan of the kind of the exclusive stuff. So people always say, will it go into retail afterwards? Yeah, it will. You'll just be paying the retail price there rather than the discounted one here. But it will get there eventually. You just might have to wait a bit longer.
Lovely. Well, we should actually pause and say thank you and hello to some of the lovely peeps who have been with us all morning. Sorry, Karl and I decided today, folks, we would be very diligent and focused on what we were talking about, and sort of because it's the Kickstarter, we thought we'd be professional about it, and typically enough, the internet decided that it would try and thwart us at every turn about that. So, hello, Simon, Graham, Peter, Evil Bob, Tadpole Face, Peter and Sean. Yeah, every so often somebody just even has a name that makes you pause for breath. Scooby-Doo gang, slasher movies. Yes, the terrain would fit in beautifully for those sorts of things as well.
I do have a small number of ghosts and kooky creatures that are being sculpted right at the moment, which might work for those. So
lovely. If only you had some pesky kids to try and thwart that as well.
That is true.
Irene exotic toothpick plants. Yes, we remember those as well.
Yes, everybody loves those.
And there's room for this. That's the thing about Lurkers from the Deep. there is the scope if you want to get back into that aspect of the hobby and do cool little things like that. Because with the whole sort of Lovecraftian theme, weird plants and fauna and stuff also lends itself to it as well. If you want to have some weird stuff on your beach or weird plants growing in the garden, that all makes sense too.
I think a lot of his creatures really quite organic and kind of plant-like anyway. There's that kind of feel to them in there. You look at some of the shapes and they look like trees.
Yeah.
There's a weird, odd thing to it. I don't know whether was he agoraphobic? I'm not
Was
sure. I
he was
need to
pretty
check
much
on that. I know he was a little bit closeted, so I don't know whether the outside world scared you enough. But certainly some of the creatures always remind me of. They've got a lot of big organic shapes.
I think in a lot of respects he didn't have an awful lot going for him inside his headspace.
No,
No,
no.
no, and let's not pretend for a minute that he was a character beyond reproach either. He had his failures the same as many other people too.
There's a if you don't know about him, most people do, but there's a good documentary. I think it's on Amazon
It
Prime.
is.
I think
Yep.
about him, and it's got Del Toro and stuff on there, kind of thing. That's worth a watch.
Yep.
Interesting but peculiar man, but you know.
Yep, and if you're not sure about the genre for Lurkers from the Deep, if even after watching this and reading this, you kind of think, oh, I'm not really sure how what that pans out. Go and watch the movie. Watch like The Fog, because the whole Innsmouth thing always reminded me of like The
Yeah,
Fog as well. That kind of there's something going on that's just it's not like a popular choice.
I've got that here actually. Yeah, it's that's probably the closest one it got on screen, I think,
Yeah,
to it. There's a really good Scooby Doo recently, Mystery Incorporated. They do a good Lovecraft episode,
yeah,
and the BBC have been doing a podcast over the last 2 or 3 years, about 3 series where they kind of reimagine 2 or 3 of the more famous Lovecraft stories in there and kind of give a bit of a modern twist. And I would say that they are a watch. I mean, most kind of geek nerdy people have got have read a little bit of Lovecraft in there. I certainly did when as I was kind of growing up in there, and it's just that it's that secret world that exists just out of view,
yeah.
which I always appealed to me
Corner
about it.
corner of the eye, corner of the eye. What was that? Was it something? Was it nothing? No, lovely. It's a lovely looking project. That for everyone who hasn't bothered looking at the screen, goes live on the 29th of January. It'll run
Yeah,
for the month.
it'll run up until the 1st of March, I think. In there, I asked people recently, with all of these things, what works best for them for kind of a Kickstarter, and they said over as many paydays as possible was the response that came back. So we've got it over the January one and over the March one, with Feb being a bit of a shorter month. So yeah, 30 odd days, give or take.
Happy days. Well, yep, that definitely gives us a window for a few pays to get in. Mark Jones, brilliant stuff. Sean Pike, the podcast, really well done, very atmospheric. Martin Doherty, also worth listening to the Horror Babble series on YouTube. Okay, there's one worth checking out as well. Yeah,
Morning,
excellent.
Martin. Martin has cast all my resin for me. Love him.
Ah, well, you've done an excellent job. An excellent job indeed. Consider me hooked, fellows. Oh, well, that's excellent to know. That's
Thank you very much.
hook, line, and sinker. With fish folk, getting hooked is the best way to get into Crooked Dice.
Oh, that's a wonderful pun.
Tampa Face, when's the expected delivery dates? Okay, it ends sort of 1st of February. How long after that before people start seeing things arriving in their letterboxes? That's a good question.
Fulfillment will be May this year.
Right.
If we can get it to people any sooner, we will do. But we're building a little bit in there. It will have printing of the feature pack to do within this one as well, but that shouldn't be too arduous. And I don't run a campaign until all of the miniatures and the bits and pieces have been mastered. And I think I've got 5 mastered for this one, which should be in train by the time this launches. So we try to deliver stuff. I mean, the only issue we've had with delivering in the past this year was when COVID hit. and just people couldn't work for a while. But
Yeah.
everything else is we've got a pretty good delivery record for our Kickstarters overall, so I can't see money being a problem.
Well, to be fair to yourself, and that is worth mentioning as well, you do tend to put your money where your mouth is. As much as this is to fund doing it, it's not to fund making it, because you've kind of already bit that, and everything.
I'm lucky enough that
Yeah,
my background is as a I'm a graphic designer by trade, so all of that layout work is kind of already done and ready to go. Miniatures, I say, are all back there where they're all kind of mastered and ready to go. So that part of the project is not funding for that. I use Kickstarter for that big production cost of getting all of that lead produced. That's how that's what I see the platform for, really.
yeah.
So that's what we're going towards, and obviously for Sarissa to produce the buildings as well. So,
So
but
you go.
they've all been done and checked, and we'll be looking at those in more detail with Sarissa. I think in a couple of weeks, I'm going to go on there. They have a weekly show, don't they? So I'm going to go on there, and Gary's going to show off all of the buildings. Yeah, so everything's basically kind of like ready to go. It's just funding it and then clicking the button to be able to put that into production.
Actually hit print. Well, I mean that's a reassurance for people as well, because there's a lot of Kickstarters that you go on to and you look at, and you're looking at concepts, you're looking at sort of CAD files, whatever. They're waiting for that money to come in to then go and discover there's a production problem, or there's a manufacturing problem, or there's a shipping problem, or whatever. Whereas you've pretty much the back broken on all of that, and you've got guys sitting going, just tell me when they're ready. Just tell me when.
Yeah, we managed to do it. The last one that we did, which was a fancy one with some orcs and goblins and various bits and pieces, you're always building a little bit of extra kind of contingency time in that, and we were hoping to deliver that by March, but we got it all out by the end of December. In the end, because we didn't. It just sailed through. It was just one of those ones where we just didn't have any production problems at all, and it all ran. So if you've backed us before, you know that we're pretty good on the we're solid on the delivery dates. So there's a slightly more things going on here because we've got Sarissa producing able to,
Well,
they've done bigger ones and more complex things in the past than this. So I don't see that being a problem for them.
Well, that's with a view that we're maybe talking to new fans or potential new fans too. I mean, there's an issue put to bed in terms of where the production stands with this. The other side of the coin is the partners that you're working with, the likes of Sarissa Precision. You can go and jump online now. You can check out Sarissa Precision, well known, well respected in the industry, and just make sure that you've turned off your PayPal before you go and look on their website, because it's it's like going into it's like going into B&M. You go into B&M with a view of, well, I'm going to walk around just to kill 10 minutes here, and you leave with 3 bags, and it's only when you get to the car you go, what? When did I buy this stuff? And Sarissa's website's kind of, look at Sarissa when you're bored, because the next thing is you'll have a box arrive with the postman and they'll have a sore back. Here you go, there's your parcel. I don't remember ordering all that.
Well, if you wanted to, like I said, when I was designing the map for the table, I pretty much used the Sarissa range in there to kind of plan that out. There's a couple of exceptions, like the last scenario is set on kind of Devil's Reef, essentially, in there. So there's not too many buildings there. But the rest of them in there, you could build a table just using the Sarissa kits. I did do that. It was it wasn't cost effective for a Kickstarter campaign, but you can do it.
Don't let cost effective get in the way of fun. Right, well, we have kept Karl for an hour on a Sunday, folks. Hopefully that has given you a fairly good on with the project. You now know you've even got a payday to get ready for it. You're going to have a payday between it coming on and it closing, so there's no excuses for this one. But do bear in mind, if nothing else, if this is not a project that you look at and go, well, I like it, but it's not for me, do remember that you sharing a post about this, commenting on it, particularly tagging a couple of mates who might be interested in sharing it to a gaming group or whatever, you can help make somebody else aware of it, and that helps the likes of Karl, who is doing this on his essentially as Jack Todd, get the word out there further. So, you know, you don't have to be helpful financially and back it for a thing you don't want. You can help practically in the deep, or there's a post from Crooked Dice about lurkers in the deep. You know what? You people out there, my friends list, might be interested in this. And it could even be, that's the weird thing too, I've got non-gaming friends who, from they become aware of what Weegamers does and the miniatures we talk about, have bought miniatures because they like the miniatures. They relate to something they're a fan of or a fandom that they're already involved in. They go and get somebody else to paint them for them, and they've got them up on their shelf. And that's it. They've no interest in playing a miniature game. They've no interest in playing a board game. They're not that type of person. So don't assume that somebody else on your friends list who's maybe a Lovecraftian fan or whatever is going to look at this and go, "Oh, I don't do." Oh, hang on a minute. I'd like to have that on my bookcase. That's something I'm particularly into, and now he's done a miniature of it, I'd like to have that. So do share, because it only costs you a few seconds of your time. And you know, if you're worried about your workmates knowing that you're actually a secret nerd, you can on Facebook select your audience, so you can block them out from seeing your nerdy posts if you really want. Karl,
the geek will inherit the earth, as we know this.
absolutely. Love Sarissa, can't stop buying from them. No, here though, don't buy anything more. Keep your money for lurkers from the deep and buy from Crooked Dice. Karl, I can only once again thank you. It's been a pleasure getting to talk to you. It's been lovely to the project. I'm not going to wish you success with it. You don't need wished success. This is going to be a success because, you know, it's you and it's Crooked Dice. And with fans like Crooked Dice has, I think everyone out there worth their salt will be doing their best to publicise and promote this one, because it's just a lovely package from start to finish, in my humble opinion.
Thank you, dear.
No problem.
Hopefully, it's it'll do well.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. I think at that it is probably time for you and I to flick to the end credits and let these good people go about their Sunday. Folks, thanks very much for watching. I apologise again for any visual peculiarities. Maybe it's because we were talking about the mythos that there was problems. But that's goodbye from me.
Cheers, Andy. Thanks everyone for watching.
Bye, everybody.